A device that continuously measures and records seismic activity is placed in a remote region. The time t to failure is exponential with mean 3 years. Since the device will not be monitored during its first 2 years of service, the time to discovery of failure is x is equal to maximum t2. Calculate expected value of x. Now, there are two times going on here. One is time for failure, which is t, and for that one, we are given the distribution being exponential. And the other time is the discovery time, which is x, and we have to find the expected value of the discovery time. So first, we write the formula for the exponential distribution PDF. We know that if the mean is k, the PDF of exponential distribution is 1 over k e power negative t over k. So in general, t goes from negative infinity to infinity, but here, since it's time, so only non-negative values make sense. So greater than or equal to 0, and k is 3. So we get this one. And next, notice that maximum of t and 2 is equal to 2 when t is less than 2. And it's equal to t when t is bigger than 2. And the expected value of x is what we need. That will be the expected value of maximum t2. That's what x is. X is equal to maximum of t2. So now here, since we have t as the variable, so you know that to find expected value of any function, you just integrate that function against the corresponding PDF. So we have to find expected of this maximum t2. So we integrate the maximum t2 against the PDF, which is f of t. And it's from 0 to infinity. But since there is no integral for the maximum function as such, so we have to break it up. And since this definition of the maximum breaks up like this from 0 to 2 and then 2 to infinity, so that's how we'll break the integral. 0 to 2 and 2 to infinity. And from 0 to 2, the maximum of t and 2, as we said above, was 2. So 2 goes in here, and f of t is this other expression. And similarly, between 2 and infinity, the maximum of t and 2 was t times f of t. Now, this first integral, after you pull out the constant, which is 2/3, is just of the form e to the ax, and from calculus you can either do u substitution here, or just remember that the integral of e power ax is e power ax divided by a. And the second one, after you pull out the constant 1/3, is t times e to the negative t over 3. So that requires integration by parts, which some of you already know, but in case you've forgotten your integration by parts, you can remember that for this particular form where we have x e to the ax, and actually this is the form that you will encounter most in this P course, and therefore it's helpful to remember this even for those who know how to do integration by parts. So it turns out that if you have x e ax, that integrates to x e ax over a minus e ax over a squared. So here a is negative 1/3 because a is the coefficient of the variable in the e power. And so using this formula for both the parts, pulling out the 2/3, it ends up being negative 2e to the negative 2/3 from 0 to 2 for the first integral. And I've separated the second integral by parentheses. And it ends up being this for the second integral, and that was from 2 to infinity. And now we recall that e to the negative infinity is 0, which is what we'll need when you substitute infinity over here, for example. And similarly over here, we will need to know what infinity times e to the negative infinity is, and that's also equal to 0. And now this is not the correct mathematical way of writing these. The correct way is to write these is in terms of limits. So for example, in a calculus course, this is written as limit of e power negative t as t goes to infinity, and that limit is equal to 0, and same over here. but I'm just being loose in my notation here because it takes a lot more time to write it in the correct form, and we don't really need to do that because here we just need to know what the values of these are, since this is not a pure math course. So I'm loose with my notation in order to save time, and that serves our purpose very, very adequately. And therefore, after using these two facts and substituting all the numbers, we end up with 2 plus 3e to the negative 2/3. And that is choice D.